Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of Bhavika and Lauricia's Chat Show. The second episode, of course, got a lot of good response, and we're here with our third guest. That's Rick Adams. Who doesn't know him? Of course, he is a CS leader, and yes, he's working as a business owner at practicalcsm.com. I've been in touch with him from last around one and a half year, and he's a really nice man. I've learned a lot from him, and he was also a guest for my Bangalore CS Cafe, and the audience loved it. I'm really happy to welcome you, Rick, on this chat show today. And thank you for accepting this invite. We are really obliged to have you with us.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here.
Thank you. So today, Rick would be taking us through a topic which is called developing stakeholder relationships, which is very important as a CSM. With this, I give this over to Rick for sharing his thoughts on this topic.
Thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to share my screen. Let me just pop up here to share my screen. And then I'm just going to launch a quick PowerPoint presentation as I think better with something in front of me. So we're going to do stakeholder management in 10 minutes, right? Okay, now it's a big conversation, and obviously there's going to be a lot more to it than this. My company does training. If you're interested in more detailed training on stakeholder management, come and talk to me. But hopefully in 10 minutes we can get somewhere. So let's take a look and see what we've got. Here's a little agenda that I put together of topics that I think is important that we discuss. So let's just go straight into it with the top one there, which is defining this term stakeholder. So if we don't know what we're talking about, how can we be useful? So let's start by making sure we're clear what we mean. A stakeholder means somebody with a stake, which just simply means a concern or an interest in the result of something. An interest in or a concern in what is happening or what will be happening or what will be the result of what happens. So that is what we mean by a stakeholder. And that's actually really quite a wide variety of different people, because it could include the people from the customer. It could be including people from within our own organization, including ourselves, and it could include people from third-party organizations as well. For example, obviously the customer's customer might get a different quality of service, for example, as an end result of this initiative, and that's why they purchased our product, and that's what the customer's customer is going to get out of it. So there's all sorts of people, and those people may actually not even be aware of the initiative. They might not know it's going to happen. They might never know, like the customer's customer, for example. Others are very well aware of it already, even before perhaps any change has occurred. And stakeholders have, and this is the important thing for us, varying levels of influence. Some are very influential in the decision making. Others have perhaps no influence whatsoever, but we still need to consider them, for example, because of measurement of the results, for example. So let's unpack that a little bit more. So I'm going to classify stakeholders into 6 groups. Here they are. We're going to go through them one by one. So, and they're kind of like most important to least important in a way, but I would argue actually that bottom one, beneficiaries, they're kind of the whole reason for doing whatever we're doing in the first place. But anyway, the decision makers decide what the outcomes of whatever we're doing have to be. Our objectives, our target, our goal. What is it we're aiming at doing? They decide what we're trying to achieve and how soon we need to achieve it by, and how much of it we need to achieve. So they are, as the decision maker, obviously their decision is, do we go ahead or do we not go ahead? Do we go ahead now or do we do it later? Do we do it in phases or do we do it all in one go? Am I prepared to spend the money up front, or am I going to spend it bit by bit over a period of time? These are the sorts of decisions. Am I going to buy your product or your competitor's product? So this is what the decision maker is doing. They set the terms for success. They tend not to be involved in day-to-day operations because they're senior budget holders. So what they might do though is they appoint somebody, and that person that they appoint has authority because they were appointed by this important person. But even though they may not be involved day to day, they may well be concerned about it. So they might want regular progress reports, and they might also be the ones who decide ultimately whether the initiative was a successful one or not. So that's the decision maker. The influencer is somebody who doesn't make the decision themselves, but may influence the decision maker to make the decision one way or the other way. And actually, they may be more influential in the decision making than the decision maker. And commonly that's the case, because a decision maker might be a very busy business person, financial officer. They either sign the check or they don't sign the check. Now, they do not know whether your product used in the marketing department is the right product for the marketing department. So what do? They go and ask the head of marketing, is this the right product? Do you really need it? Are you certain you're going to get value from it? Is it the best one for us? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, well, I trust my head of marketing, so I will sign and say yes. So in this instance, who made the decision? Well, technically, the head of finance made the decision. They signed, but actually, in reality, it was the influencer. It was the head of marketing who really influenced that decision. We've got to understand who that is. Might be a deputy who has been assigned to, actually do the details, or it might be a subject matter expert, like the example I just gave. Somebody in marketing is going to help me understand whether or not I should purchase this marketing product. That's my influencer. Project overseer. This is the poor person who's got to make it work. So once the decision has been made, now we've got to actually get value out of it from the customer's point of view. The purchase, that's the downside. They've spent money. Now the upside is using the product over time to generate value and hopefully generate more value than the cost originally. Well, we've got to get there. And that's going to be a process over time. It's not going to happen overnight. So it could be 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, multiple decades even sometimes, right? So over the period of time, we have somebody who's responsible for making sure that the right things happen in the right order, to the right quality, on an ongoing basis. I call it the senior project lead, or SPL in my terminology. But the person that the CSM usually works with closest on a day-to-day basis. That's who we're talking about. And it could be one person, it could be a small team of them as well. They may, of course, be the decision maker. So in a smaller business, maybe we don't have lots of levels of management. So the person who signs the check is the project overseer. And maybe there was no other influencer because it's only, a few people in the business. But for larger businesses, tends to be divided out. They may also, the project overseer, be one of the next group, which is the resource owner. Now, these are important because they can influence how well things happen. So this is usually a department head, a team head, a function head. They manage people, processes, and equipment. They are the ones that actually are in charge of business capability, the ability to get stuff done to the right quality, to the right standard, in the right time frame, and the right cost. They have teams who work for them, and they assign tasks to people. Like, you 5, go and do this. You 6, go and do that. Okay, here are the tools and equipment. Here's your budget. Here are the resources. Here's the process to follow. That's what these function heads, team leaders, or department heads are responsible for doing. So if we're going to have our product installed and we're going to have users using it, or the users that use our product, they are going to be, if you like, they're owned by the function heads or the resource owners. So we've got to talk to them to make sure, are these the right people for using our product? Do they understand how to use it, or do they need training? Do they need to be communicated to explain what the difference is and why, and to win their hearts and minds and to get them on board, etc. So these resource owners are our gateway to the resource that we want to have using our product, which is users, and are also maybe in charge of amending the process to change from using the old product to using our new product. So they're very, very important to us. We've got to talk to them. The next group are the users themselves, the people who actually follow the process using the tools to create output, to create all the outputs that together add up to be the ultimate outcome that the decision makers that we talked about earlier are looking for. So these are the people who actually do the work. Again, very important. You could even subdivide these into direct and indirect users, but we haven't got a lot of time for that. Let's talk more about the direct users, the obvious group, the people who actually are going to use our product. So we've got to ask ourselves, are they ready to use our product, or do we need to train them, or do they need some support? Maybe we should incentivize them. Do we need to reward them for doing things differently? We need to think about that. And then the final group that I want to talk about here is the beneficiaries, the people who get the benefit of all this change happening, right? So they've spent all this money, they've trained up the users, supported the users, rewarded the users. The users are doing all this activity in these functions, following the new process, using our great, fantastic new tool, with an end result of, you know, presumably somebody somewhere getting something out of this. Could be better quality of service, or a cheaper product, or a higher quality product, or new products brought to market more quickly, whatever it is, but there's going to be some beneficiary of the business. Right. And that could be the business itself, and it could be the business's customers, and of course, if the customers win, then the business wins. So we've got to think about those. So with all of that to think about, it's quite a lot. There's a tool that's quite useful to use called the Racy Matrix. You may well have come across it, but if you haven't, here it is. So when you're trying to get your head around, well, who are all these different people, and in what ways are they involved within a project? This comes from the project management world. You can use the Racy Matrix. Racy stands for, as you can see here, responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Responsible, somebody who can carry out the process, they actually get the job done. Accountable, somebody who makes sure that that job does get done to the right standard. They're ultimately accountable, if you like. The responsible actually does it. Accountable makes sure it gets done. Consulted are not directly responsible, but indirectly they help. And informed simply are told when it has been done, because maybe they need to then go and do something themselves. And what we can do is we can build in Excel or something like you see here, a simple spreadsheet where we've got a column for each person. So this is all the different roles like technical lead, project manager, consultant, sponsor, all of these people, and then task in the project. And then all we've got to do is say, right, for task 1, sponsor in this instance is accountable. This person here is responsible, and this person gets informed. And that way we've got absolute clarity all the way down each task in order that the tasks happen, who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, and who's informed, so we know where we are. So it's a really good tool for understanding who's involved in any one project. Definitely recommend using it. However, it does not in any way allow for personality. And actually with the people, and as it says here, funnily enough, people are humans, not robots. So unlike a robot, which you can pretty much, unless it actually goes wrong, rely upon to do exactly the same thing in exactly the same way every time, and exactly the same set of robots will all do it exactly the same way. Yeah, you get 300 people and get them to do something, they'll all do it slightly differently because they're humans. So personality comes into play for things like management style. So do they make the decision themselves, or do they pass it on to somebody else? If they do make the decision, do they want every single detail, or do they just want a summary? Do they want you to report to them on a daily basis, a monthly basis? When they ask, and don't bother me, and just give me the exact summary. Give me the graphical version, give me the facts, let me work it out for myself so that I can see it. So there's a lot of different considerations about different characters and personalities and what they're going to want from you. We need to think about that as well. Okay. Recommendation: Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman is a great book. It's been about for 1995 or something like that. I can't remember. It's been around a long time. I'm sure you've heard of it. I'm sure you're aware of it. If you haven't read it, it's a great book for anybody who has a customer-facing role to start to understand some of these sort of non-intellectual and non-data driven and analytical side of it, the human side, self-awareness, social awareness, relationship management, and self-management combined to be emotional intelligence. I'd recommend that. And then the final thing I wanted to say, that you can then put it all together with all of that stuff into a stakeholder management matrix, where we can view everybody as an overall stakeholder team and look at patterns of similarity and difference between the stakeholders, look at how they combine and work together to determine the overall directive. And we can manage them in three aspects: level of authority, level of interest, and level of support. Here is an example. On my y-axis, which is this one here, I have the level of authority. That's how much authority they have over the decision to proceed or not to proceed. So for example, you can see here, the highest level of authority is the CFO. On the x-axis is the level of interest. That's how concerned they are in this. How important is it to them? And in this instance, senior project lead, that person who is responsible for making it happen, has got the highest level of interest or concern in making sure this thing happens, which makes sense. Okay? So we put them there, but they haven't got as much authority. So this one's got more authority, this one's got more interest. And then you notice here that there is a number, and that is the, if you recall back, the support level, because this is two-dimensional, it's a piece of paper, we can't get 3 dimensions on it. So we'll give them a number from 0 to 10 to indicate how supportive they are. Okay. So are they a blocker? Are they in the way? Are they stopping things from moving forwards? Or are they a helper? Are they right behind you? Are they a cheerleader to help you? And because you know those 3 things and you've made it clear on the piece of paper, you can spot, like, for example, here are 2 people, they're both a level 9, they're really helpful. They're going to help us to make it work. And maybe they can help us move this HR manager, who's only a 5, but is pretty important. They've got a reasonable level of authority. Maybe they can help to move this person's mind. So I can start to think about patterns and how I can use these people. And maybe I can build a number of strategies like we see here. There we go. That's it. That's stakeholder management in 10 minutes. Nearly a taste. And what you need to do is unpack that, a heck of a lot more. But I hope it's at least some ideas for consideration.
It was definitely very insightful, Rick. I got to know actually a different version of how should you actually be managing so many stakeholders as a CSM, because that's like you have to do it as a CSM. There is no another option for that. And I really love the slides. Going ahead with this show, we have a specific format of the show. So there are 3 rounds moving forward, which is the rapid fire round, the dilemma situation, and the question of the day. With this, I give this over to Lotte to start with the first round, that's rapid fire round.
Okay, be nice to me, Lottie.
Yes, always. So you talked a lot about different groups of stakeholders. Which are concretely the stakeholders that customer success managers most likely develop relationships with?
It's a great question. Let me reverse that around. You're least likely to develop a relationship with the beneficiary because you may not ever meet them at all. So they're going to be more likely to be described to you. The people that you're going to meet in the early phases and in the reporting are the decision makers. And then in the ongoing adoption phases and helping them to get going is that senior project lead, the person who's going to make it work. And they're the one that you need to really form the relationship with. They're the ones you're going to be working with day to day over a number of months to really give your guidance to them. And you are effectively, they're the hero of the story, the senior project lead, and you are their guide. So the way I look at it is like they are like oh gosh, what's the name? Frodo Baggins in Lord of the Rings. They are Frodo Baggins. They're going on this journey to Mount Doom, and we are there to help them. We're like Gandalf or one of his other party members. We're guiding him there. We are not the hero ourselves. We've got to make them the hero.
Okay. And with all those different stakeholders you have, how do you best divide your time between all these different stakeholders?
That's what the stakeholder management matrix is all about. So the purpose of doing an exercise like that, getting it down on paper, is because you can see like 3 dimensions. You can see how much of authority they have over this, how much concern they have over this, and how much support they have for you. Those 3 factors will help you to decide, well, then how much time should I spend with each one of them?
Okay.
Got it. Third question for you, Rick. when is the right time to make the relationship with your stakeholders? Is it during the onboarding phase? Is it during when you are actually handling their account, analyzing the performance? When should we actually start building the relationship with the stakeholder?
Yeah, great question. I think like any relationship, like it's never too, it's always best to do it as early as possible.
As early as right.
There's never, there's never really a good reason for delay. So ideally, I think during the pre-sales process, when the salesperson or account manager is actually primarily responsible for the relationship, ideally they should introduce the CSM at this stage, because this is the person that their customer is going to be working with. And so I think from the customer's perspective, it's actually quite comforting to meet the CSM, because unless they meet them, they don't know, is this someone I'm going to be able to get on with? Maybe this is not going to be a useful person for me. So it reassures the customer. And of course, in doing so, then that starts the trust relationship going. And then when we do then get introduced again later on as being, well, now we're taking over and actually doing stuff with them, we've already got a head start.
Right. With this also, Rick, one thing that I got in my mind was it's very important for the handoff to be correctly done between the sales and the CS team, because that way, actually the CSM can make the customer comfortable, and the customer also should know that yes, till now the sales guy was there with me, he was helping me with all the things, but now it's time that I'm with a dedicated CSM, or he or she would be able to help me. So that handoff is also very necessary and very important. Like you mentioned, it's very important to make the customer comfortable.
Yeah, you're right. It is for two reasons. The first reason is as you say, is a comfort thing. So it feels disconcerting to be told by somebody, well, I'm not seeing you ever again, and this new person's going to be looking after you now. Right? That's not comfortable. It's not comfortable. Human beings don't work like that. We don't like change. Okay, what we like is the norm. And I've got used to you, the salesperson, and I'm comfortable with you. I might not like or get on with or trust the CSM because I haven't met them yet. So that again is the reason why we want to be introduced beforehand, so that it's not like a cutoff point. That was sales, now it's CSM. It's more of a sliding sort of, where we take over gradually. That's going to make the customer most comfortable. Also, from the other point of handover, of course, is it's ignoring the customer's concerns for a second, is our own abilities. We can only help the customer with the knowledge that we have and the information and data that we have. So we rely upon, we've got to do our research, and a lot of that is going to be the handover from the salesperson. The better quality handover that we have, the better able we are to hit the ground running, will be really helpful to the customer. And by the way, it is frustrating if customers get asked the same set of questions twice and they're rolling their eyes going, well, I've already explained all of this. You should know. That can be disheartening, I think.
That can only be avoided if there is a correct handoff, so that the same questions are not asked again by the CSM on another call. That yes, what are your goals? What are your objectives? What do you want to do with this product subscription and stuff? Right.
Absolutely right. Because the other concern is if the salesperson has done their job right. Right. Yeah. So yes, if the salesperson's done their job right, and if they give us a good handover.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need both of those things.
Yeah, that's true. Moving on with the next question, how to adopt your communication based on the type of stakeholder. So because there are different stakeholders when a CSM meets in his or her journey. So how should the communication differ? I know there would be, of course, a difference in the communication in, like, if we take into consideration the authority, but what should we actually take care of when we're talking to different set of stakeholders?
Yeah, okay. So this is a question that we could spend several hours. Okay, so you're quite right to use the word adapt. All right, so as a customer success manager, our job is to get stuff done. Okay, so we can do it the way we like, but actually that may not always get the best result, because we've got to think about the other parties in the relationship. So we've got to be agile ourselves and adapt sometimes to how they like it rather than how we would like it. So again, there is, if you like, there's two aspects to this. Perhaps you could look at the emotional and the practical. So from an emotional perspective, that comes back to that emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman, take a look at that and think about, well, how do different types of personalities react in different situations, and how can I, perhaps deal with somebody who is not always that easy to deal with, and it may even be recognized and known as being an awkward person to deal with. You know, how can I adjust how I go about displaying my personality to them in order to, you know, to get the result that I want? But it's about results, right? It's not about being right. It's about getting the result. That's the sort of the emotional, if you like, or the personality side. And the other side, the practical side, is, well, yeah, I mean, very important senior decision makers, even if they wanted to, which they probably don't have the time to discuss details with us. So when we approach somebody who is a senior decision maker, like a C-level exec, we've got to be aware of what's on their minds, which is just, yeah, is it working or isn't it? If it isn't working, by how much is it not working? What needs to be done? What would the cost be? You know, and what would you recommend I do? They want the quick overall picture. They want your ability to back that up with evidence, should they ask you. But they need the big picture quickly from you, and they don't want it every 5 minutes either, by the way. Okay, so they need it on a regular basis. They need to be able to rely on you. They need to be able to trust you that you're getting on with it. They need to know that if you go beyond a certain point, or if the project goes beyond a certain point, then you're gonna refer back to them, so that they still have control over the larger decisions. But they don't want to have their time wasted. Just don't have it. On the other hand, as I said, with somebody who's like the senior project lead, who's been handed that responsibility day to day to make the project work, well, then your relationship is going to be very different. And with that, you know, again, I think a lot of that is personality based, and a lot of that is about, well, how important is this? They may have 30 things like this.
Right.
This is their one. Okay. And if this is their one, they may be very passionate about it, and it may be a lot more important. This is one of 30 things. Okay. So what we've got to do is we've effectively we've got to agree. So if you look at my practical CSM framework, okay, divide a customer initiative into 7 phases, right? And the first one is called preparation. That's about preparing yourself. The second one, which people don't always immediately understand, is actually called commitment. And commitment is about how you and they, the customer, commit to each other to work together to get the results done. And that would include, well, what's the cadence? How often are we going to meet? How are we going to meet? Is it going to be like this, a virtual Zoom meeting? Or am I going to pick up the phone? Am I going to email you? How many emails is acceptable? You know, 10 a day, 10 a year, right? Or somewhere in between. You know, with what information? Well, with buckets of megabytes of, you know, detailed information, or a summary sheet once a month. I don't know. Yeah, this is what you've got to decide with that senior project lead, as to, you know, what's the style of working together. What are you going to do? What are they going to do? How often are you going to do it? How often are you going to do it together? How often are you going to refer to each other and let each other know, and so on and so forth. So you've got to come together and decide all of that.
Got it. Thank
Right.
you, Rick, for that question. Yeah. Going ahead with the dilemma situation round. Over to you, Lotte.
Yes. So stakeholders sometimes have conflicting interests. For example, the decision maker can have a very different interest than the customer, for example. How do you solve that? How do you react?
Okay, so yes, absolutely. So for example, the senior decision maker might be all about keeping the costs low, whereas your project lead might be all about the quality of the result, for example. Okay, so you've got a conflict in interest here, because one of them wants to keep the cost down and the other one wants to make the result as good as possible. And you can't do both. Okay, you can either keep the cost down to as low as possible, or you can create the best possible result, but you can't do both. Well, then that's the point of the stakeholder management matrix. That's why you've got to go through this. Yeah, it may seem like really tedious stuff, right? But there's a reason why you need to go through the stakeholder management process. You've got to identify who all the stakeholders are, determine those 3 aspects of them. How much authority do they have over this? How much, and therefore how much influence over the decision making? How passionate or concerned are they about it? And how supportive are they of us in our role to do it? And how helpful are they? If we know those 3 things for all of the stakeholders, then we can then look at it not just one by one, but holistically in the round, which is the purpose of that matrix, to make an overall decision, well then, given that these are the people and these are the levels of their interests and concerns that I now understand, I can make an overall decision about what is best, which is, well, that person is very much more senior than that person. So actually, I've got to treat their concerns more importantly, unfortunately, than those person's concerns. So in this instance, cost window, for example.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that's the correct decision. That's the point of the stakeholder management matrix and of going through this process.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've never looked at stakeholders and the whole thing in such detail, but you get so much out of it, and it's really, yeah, much better to decide things and to make it based on valuable things and not just doing things. But yeah, you get a good direction if you use the matrix.
Yeah, and by the way, of course, this is not something that is easy to do just like all done in one go. It's actually, as you get to know the stakeholders, you learn more about them, and so you can then complete that matrix with a little bit more information over time. So that also is something that's worth it. And I would also add, for more complex situations, depends on the size of your organization, but if you are working with others, then share that information with them and help them to build this profile up between you and put it on your CRM tool so that everybody knows it and everybody can contribute to it and everybody can say, oh, Frank, oh my gosh, you've got Frank, right? You've got to know this about Frank, right? He's perfectly sweet and happy so long as you never ever say da 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 or whatever it is. This stuff, you know, it's so powerful to know it in advance.
That's right. That's right. Moving on with the last round, that's question of the day. So, a very insightful question: how to take care of relationships which have been ruined? So,
okay, well, if they're ruined, by definition, you can't. What you sweep them up and put them in the bin, right? I mean, if it's ruined. If it's nearly ruined, if you've got a problem and you think it's salvageable, I mean, look, I think that there are two parts to a relationship, right? A business relationship, right? Which is credibility and trust. Okay, so credibility means, has this person got something that is worth listening to, right? Are they actually, are they experts in their field? Is there something useful, right? And trust, that's something different, right? That is about, yes, but do I really believe that they are looking after my interests for me? Are they going to give me best advice for me, or are they looking after their own interests, right? Now you could add a third aspect in here, which is rapport. So rapport means, but do I like them? Do I get on with them? Are they easy to get on with? You know, do I enjoy spending time with them, or are they, an awkward person who's always proving themselves right and making me look foolish, or whatever situation is. So you could argue there's a sort of a third, sort of more, again, a more emotional aspect. But at the very least, we need to consider, well, the credibility and the trust, but also the third, bringing in the third aspect, the emotion aspect of rapport. So so I would think then, in terms of a relationship that's broken down, you might want to consider, well, which of those three aspects has broken down? Is it that I've given bad advice and my credibility is reduced? Is it because they think they've caught me out, that I'm not actually looking after and serving their best interests, but actually looking after my own company's interests rather than theirs, which is maybe the sort of trust thing? Or maybe I've said I would do it by Thursday, and here it is, it's Monday. That's and then the fourth thing is, it actually, well, look, he knows his stuff, and he's always does what he says he's going to do. I just don't like him. Right. So which of those aspects do you need to work on? All right. So I would say, like, number one is that. Okay. Number two, I would say this is if there has been a problem, like, absolutely deal with it straight away. Don't wait. Okay. So got to get on straight away. The quicker you respond to a problem, the more you can reduce the size of the problem. Apologize anyway. Apologize straight away. Okay. So that means it doesn't matter whose fault it was. That's not the point, right? They're the customer, you're the supplier. All right. So what are you apologizing for? We don't need to apologize because you've done something wrong. You can apologize because it's happened. Okay. Because you're really sorry that it has happened. You don't have to, you don't have to accept responsibility at that point. Okay. So I think, absolutely respond straight away and accept that it has happened. Then also, apologize straight away and show that you care and show that you're going to do something about it. All right. If applicable, actually, yes, do actually apologize and take responsibility. So if it is your company, not you, but your company has done something wrong, then apologize for that and take responsibility that that is what has happened. Now, you've got to be a little bit careful here for various legal issues. You may just need to check to make sure legally, are you able to say, yes, my company is responsible for this? Do you have the authority to say that? If you don't, you might just get yourself into trouble, but you might just want to check that point before you say it. But basically, as quickly as possible, if your company has made a mistake, you want to be saying to your customer, I need to tell you this, we've made a mistake and I'm very sorry for it, but I want you to know as straight as possible. When you tell them this, have an understanding already of what the impact has been or will be, okay, and what your recommendations are for dealing with it. So that you're saying, this is what happened, this is what the results of what happened are, and this is what I recommend we do in order to reduce or completely remove it. So you want all three of those components.
Right.
The final thing I would say, which is like, this is definitely do as I say, not as I do, if you haven't noticed, like, is shut up and listen. Okay. But let them, if they are angry, okay, or frustrated or fearful, listen to them. Don't interrupt them. Let them finish completely. Show that you are listening through active listening skills and paraphrasing back, and at the end of it, acknowledge what they have said and accept it, even if you disagree with it. They don't have to accept it as in, I accept that you're right, but I have listened to you and I completely understand that that is how you feel. Okay.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are at the end of our show. Our time is up. But we really want to thank you for joining us. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too.
Thank you, Lottie. Thank you, Bhavika. Yes, very much indeed. Yeah, I feel like, whew.